The NHL playoffs are quickly approaching, and already there is a ton of discourse around the playoffs. Not the potential matchups or who should be favored or which teams are most deserving or need to win a Stanley Cup, but about the playoff format itself. Plenty of content creators and talk shows, including Spittin' Chicklets, have broken down why they think the current format is unfair, why we should go back to the old 1-8 seeding format or some other new variation, but I disagree with those perspectives. I think that the current NHL playoff format is not only a more interesting way to seed the playoffs than most of the other major sports, but I also think it's a fair one, so I'm going to break down the 3 reasons why I would keep the current playoff format and what could be done to make it better. But first, let's go through the case against it, as Biz, Wit, and all the Spittin' Chicklets gang broke down on their podcast.
Something has to be done because for the Bruins right now, the Islanders are sitting there at 83, 85 points or whatever. We have to play Tampa after the Rangers get Detroit. That's bullshit, dude. I don't get why you can't go back to 1 versus 8.
The current format seems unfair, mainly because of the Boston Bruins, who are going to be the winners of the Atlantic Division, yet because of how the seeding shakes out right now, they would be playing the first wildcard team, aka the Tampa Bay Lightning, in the first round. And the reason that's a problem is because the Lightning are already locked into a playoff spot with 93 points, whereas the team that would finish third in the Metro Division, one of the Islanders, Penguins, Capitals, and maybe Flyers, is probably going to finish with a worse record than them. So theoretically, the second best team in the Metro, which is the Carolina Hurricanes, who matches up against the third best team in the Metro, would have an easier first round series than the Bruins, who won their division outright. And on the surface, it's very easy to see why people are upset. Winning the division should give you a huge advantage in the playoffs. And in past years where it was 1-8 seeding, the Boston Bruins would actually get to play the New York Islanders or the Penguins or the Capitals or whoever ends up being that third Metro team. But before I explain why I think the current playoff seeding still works, I'd like to point out that the Carolina Hurricanes are only behind the Boston Bruins by 2 points, and they have more regulation and overtime wins than the Bruins do on the year. There's actually an argument to be made that the Carolina Hurricanes are the second best team in the East, and they deserve to have a very easy first round matchup if we're just going by pure strength of the teams, taking even the divisions out of it. And that's the first reason I like this playoff format, is that it makes each division a battle that's worth winning, because if we did a strict 1-8 seeding in the conference and we disregarded division winners, again, Boston could be the third or maybe even fourth best team, depending on how loaded the other division in your conference is. Winning the division should net you a big advantage, and the Boston Bruins, or whoever ends up winning the Atlantic, are getting one. They're playing a wildcard team. They're not playing one of the other good teams in their division, and they're not playing one of the better teams in the Metro. Yeah, the Lightning are better than the Islanders or the Caps or the Penguins or the Red Wings, but you know who they aren't better than? The Leafs or the Panthers, who are the 2 teams that Boston is insulated from playing because they won their division. The second reason that I want to keep the current playoff format is the reason it was instituted to begin with. It creates a lot of division rivalries. As it stands right now, if the Red Wings don't make it in, either the Penguins, Capitals, or Flyers make it in over them, we would have a scenario where every single first round matchup in the East is an interdivisional matchup. That's how you create rivalries, and that's how you get more exciting playoff matchups. Does anybody really want to watch the Hurricanes play the Lightning when we could have the Bruins against the Lightning and the Rangers against the Caps or the Penguins or the Flyers? Those are much more interesting matchups, even if they are not quite as balanced. And the final reason that I think that this current playoff format should stay, and I'm going to be shouting this all spring, is that the NHL playoffs are not fair. Contrary to what most fans believe, the best team doesn't always win the Stanley Cup, and in fact, they don't often win the Stanley Cup because the playoffs are a lot of luck. These are the best teams in the NHL. They're playing in 7-game series where 1 blown call, 1 deflection, 1 missed penalty, 1 bad break in overtime can decide a series. Winning in the playoffs takes an incredible amount of luck. We've seen the worst team in the NHL beat the President's Trophy winners multiple times. Heck, it happened last year to the Boston Bruins when they played the worst team entering the playoffs in the Florida Panthers, and they lost in 7 games. As much as fans might not want to admit it, luck is just one of the biggest factors with regards to making a deep playoff run, and you're going to have to play the best teams and get a little luck to do so. I'm sorry, the fact that the Bruins are going to potentially play the Lightning in the first round does not fundamentally alter whether or not they can win the Stanley Cup. They still need to be playing at their top level and hope they get lucky, and you know what? If the Tampa Bay Lightning are really that good of a team, then they probably would end up playing them later in the playoffs anyway. If you want to be the best, you have to beat the best, and you have to take whoever is up there. Yes, I understand that it's frustrating for Bruins fans who think that they could be getting a much easier path, but remember guys, last year you played the worst team in your conference in the first round, and that didn't work out so well. Maybe avoiding the Penguins or Flyers or Caps or Islanders was a blessing in disguise.